Today we're talking the unmasking of Spider-Man, but before the break, we asked you, does the unmasking of Spider-Man ruin the franchise? Well, 41% of you said yes, while 59% of you said no, it doesn't ruin the franchise. It is about to get, so hot, so naturally we go over to Kevin.
Sorry, I'm heating things up. So you've been buying Spider-Man ever since you could read or walk up to the comic book store, and you felt safe in the fact that the world never knew the true identity of your masked hero. But now, Peter Parker has outed himself, and your whole world is spinning around. Was this the right move by Marvel? What does it mean for the future of the comic? Opinions are heated, fans are divided, and we're about to get into it, folks, in The Loop. All right, folks, joining us via satellite to help us make sense of the Spider-Man controversy from New York, editor for Marvel Comics, Axel Alonso, is here. From Los Angeles, our resident comic book critic, Blair Butler. And from Chicago, contributor to Ain't It Cool Comics, Nick Harris. Everybody, thanks for joining us in The Loop. Nick, I'd like to start with you, sir, if we can. 41% of our viewers say, hey, look, this is going to ruin the franchise. Now, I know this could just be initial shock, but that number's kind of high. Where do you fall on this whole issue?
I'm in the 41%, definitely. I think that a lot of fans view it as the latest in a long string of missteps with the character over the course of the last year and a half, and I think a lot of people feel like this is just sort of the last nail.
So do you think that this is it for them, that they're going to abandon the franchise after this, Axel? Is it that drastic for you?
Oh, come on. You guys give us far too much credit for doing things wrong and far too little for doing things right. I was on the phone with Stan Lee, who created Spider-Man last week. He loves this idea. He was congratulating us on the strategy behind it. And understand, Spider-Man is unmasking himself in the context of a huge event here at Marvel, and it's consistent with his character in the context of that event. This event is called Civil War.
I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people who don't think that it is consistent with his character, and I mean, certainly you and Stan and everybody else know where this is going to end up, and we don't. But after
that's
all
the point
of the recent
exactly.
changes,
You don't know where things are going to head up. Look, the internet has changed a lot of things right now. Basically, we've always been getting feedback for this. People said Spider-Man was over when he graduated high school. They said he was over when he married Mary Jane. They said he was over when he wore the black suit, and that went on to become one of the most popular characters in Marvel, Venom.
Yeah, and I think people are, Marvel still gets to have it both ways, because you have Ultimate Spider-Man, where Peter Parker still is in the closet, so to speak, with his secret identity. So I think it's kind of interesting. I think it opens up some new storylines.
Blair, overall then, because fans can have it however they want with whatever series of Spider-Man they want, do you think this really affects things overall for the Spider-Man franchise?
Well, I think it's huge. I think it opens up new storylines, and it's interesting because they did something like this with Daredevil a year or so ago. But I mean, I'm curious to see the stories that come out of it, and I think depending on the quality of those stories, fans will either really embrace this or shy away from it. My only fear, and Axel, you can sort of comfort me on this one. I'm a little worried that we might be heading towards a crisis-level reset with Marvel, just because DC had to do that to kind of streamline their continuity.
Now, that's a good question, Axel. For those who don't know, sometimes in comic books they get a little crazy. They take the stories in places fans don't expect, and then they say, hold on, sorry about that, our bad, and they reset the stories. Things go back to normal. It's not just Blair's concern. Half the internet is very concerned. Will Marvel turn their backs on this revelation and just say, oh, everybody forgot, we wiped their minds, or we're just going to reset the comics?
Scarlet Witch action.
I'm not going to give away any spoilers. What I'm just going to say is that this story sets up years of intriguing stories. The easy part for Peter Parker was getting up on that podium and taking off the mask. The hard part is about to come. He did this with the support of his loved ones. They knew what he was getting into. They supported him in this decision. Now he's going to have to deal with the consequences. Spider-Man has always been the heart of the Marvel Universe. The heart of the Marvel Universe. In this event, you have Iron Man, a.k.a. Tony Stark, on one side. You have Captain America, a.k.a. Steve Rogers, on the other. And they represent the polar stance on this issue of superhero registration. Spider-Man, who's always been the heart of the Marvel Universe, takes a position. He's the guy who can see both sides of the argument, but he's the guy who also takes the stand to the limit.
All right, well, Nick, Nick, why do you think fans are so upset about this? Don't you think that by now they've come to expect these kinds of things from the comics? I mean, Batman can break his back, and Superman can die. Aunt May has died about 1,000 times.
I think a lot of
comics.
No,
I think that part of the problem is that people have seen this all before. There are too many times where we've seen things that are supposed to be major changes. With Spider-Man in the last year and a half, we've seen major change after major change, and there's a certain degree of trust that you have to have in the writers, the creators, the editors. And so far, it feels like with all these big changes, that trust hasn't really been followed through on. I mean, you've got weird stuff going on with spider totems and gods, and then you've got a new suit, and now he's unmasked, and it's this. All
right, well,
it doesn't feel like
Blair
or enough follow through.
Well, Blair was actually excited for this. Blair, do you still trust Marvel, or have you given up on them now because of this revelation? Where do you fall?
I mean, look, there are a lot of people that are really upset because they love the fact that Spider-Man is always going to be a hero, but he's also this guy who just can't quite get his life to work on the other side, and obviously this is going to change a lot of that. But, I think it's interesting because, as many people have pointed out, Spider-Man has sort of had this dual identity for 40-some years, and it's interesting to see it shaken up. I think, again, as I said before, it's the quality of the stories that come out of this, and I think it does set up a couple years of really interesting, different potential possible stories to come out of it. So my reaction isn't like a knee-jerk, like, oh my gosh, this is horrible reaction. I
we
think
have some
it could
fascinating
be
stories to tell. And the thing about this as well is that Marvel Comics always function best when they're telling stories about the real world, when they're taking a look at issues that we can relate to right now. This event called Civil War is about an issue that cuts close to home for anyone living in the U.S. right now. How much freedom are you willing to give up for safety, and whose freedom? Spider-Man takes a stand by unmasking. And as the heart of the Marvel Universe, that's his prerogative. He's the guy who will help us walk readers through all of these issues and come to their own conclusion. Come back a year from now, we'll be having even more controversy, I guarantee you. That's nature. That's why we love fans.
Nick,
I think that a lot of what you're saying is that, we need to trust the story. But honestly, readers today are a lot more intelligent and sophisticated. And it's not that we don't understand the storytelling potential. I think the problem is that we feel like more and more often the characters are being bent to fit the story and not the other way around. And I think there were probably better choices of characters to do this. But the thing is that with a character who is so iconic...
Well, Axel, yes, some people are saying that you guys are selling out
the
Peter
character
Parker
is so
to push
iconic,
issues.
so well-loved. This is a classic character who I think works best as that stand-in, that everyman, that dual identity, where he's juggling two worlds. And that's what the fans are really
We're not here,
over.
as editors and writers, we're not here to appease the hardcore fans from long ago, giving them what they expect to see. We're there to cut against the grain of expectation and to go that extra leg. I assure you that this was something that was debated at length by the senior editor staff and the assembled group of writers who were there in that room as we hammered this out. It started with a simple question by Mark Miller. We began to examine character motivations, and everybody in the room, right up to the publisher and editor-in-chief, we hammered it out. We came out of that room confident that we have a very interesting story.
It's clear that you guys, you went through it, the cat's out of the bag, it obviously got attention. Folks, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but as you can see, this is a very heated debate. I have a feeling nobody is going to miss out on issue number 3, and maybe at the end of the day, that's what it's about. But I want to thank Axel Alonso, Blair Butler, and Nick Harris for joining us and keeping us in the loop. Thank you all so much.